guess what? I have a message. So we're going to try that thing with the screen and a screen, see how that works. There, comfy and everything. Well, hi. How are you? Is that working? Yeah. Okay, I want to keep going on this. This is, in a very strong sense, this is still part of the upright ostrich teaching, the philosophy. We have our head out of the sand, and we're listening to the truth and looking at the truth. Is the law abolished? We've been talking about that. Why do we even need the law? What's it for? So I'm going to cover a couple of things today. Yahweh, open our eyes that we might see wonders from your word. Why do we need the law? It's simple. We need to know what Yahweh considers sin. Not what the Jews or not what the Christians consider sin, not what our church considers sin, but what does he think of it? And we need to know that so we don't do it. And we need to know that so that we can be set apart to him. He doesn't want us to sin, and if we don't do that, we're set apart to him, and that we can have fellowship with Yahweh. All right, here's a question. Is the law abolished? Well, rather than trying to go through all of the writings of Paul, Rabbi Shaul, I chose to ask Yeshua what he thinks of this. Yeshua and the Torah, Yeshua and the law. In Matthew 5, 17 through 19, I don't know if you knew this, its verses are there. Yeshua expresses his attitude towards Torah. The King James uses the word law specifically. All right, this is the whole three verses, 17 through 19, and it says, "Do not think I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. For truly I say to you, till the heaven and the earth pass away, one yud or one tittle shall by no means pass from the Torah till all be done. However, or whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men so, shall be called least in the reign of the heavens, but whoever does and teaches them shall be called great in the heavens." Those are his words. Specific, short, to the point. There are three distinct points that can be made from each one of those three verses. One, in Matthew 5:17, Yeshua says, "Do not think I have come to abolish the Torah or the prophets." The Torah or the prophets is the Hebrew writings. It's what's called the Old Testament. He didn't come to do away with it. I have come not to abolish, but to complete. Now, he is using rabbinic terminology. He is making a rabbinic argument. In plain English, he is saying, you have heard that our fathers were told, an erroneous teaching by the rabbis, but I say to you, the correct teaching. That's what the rabbis would do in his day, and that's what they do today. Yeshua is illuminating Yahweh's word. He's not making up any new teachings. Matter of fact, all of chapter 5 through 7, nothing's new. All he's doing is amplifying, correcting our thinking. And he's using that common parlance that the rabbis of that day would have used normally. The terms destroy or abolish and fulfill are technical rabbinic argument terms. When one rabbi felt that one of his buddies was just speaking, off the top of his head and he was misinterpreting a passage, he'd get all bent out of shape and he'd say, "You are destroying the law." And they'd argue a lot. That's their job. That's what they do. You understand, if you have two rabbis together, you have three opinions. And they will argue tooth and nail, and then they'll go have lunch. Now, the same rabbi would go on and he would correctly interpret the scriptures, or he would fulfill the scriptures. That's what the terminology means. Did my mic just go dead? It's okay? All right, it sounded like that. All right, never mind. Point number 2, verse 18. Yes, indeed. I tell you that until heaven and earth pass away, heaven and earth pass away. I'm thinking that's a real big deal, and we wouldn't miss it. It wouldn't go by, and then we'd sort of, well, what happened? Not so much as the little teeny itty-bitty thing written in the Torah will go away until everything that must happen has happened. That should be plain. Now, I've heard pastors say, well, he's completed the Torah. He's completed the law. It's all done. He's done everything that he wants to do, everything he's supposed to do. But it should be intuitively obvious to the most casual observer that all of the prophecies concerning Yeshua's first coming have been complete. Okay? Now let me say that again. All of the prophecies, not one of them has been kind of forgotten or sort of, well, maybe we just didn't do that. Yahweh gave all of those prophets, all of those people, prophetic utterance that would point to Yeshua. Every single one of those things has happened for his first coming. And guess what? He came. If he showed up and all those prophecies are fulfilled, that he showed up, all of the scriptures that talk about him in the latter days will be fulfilled. Not one will be forgotten. The church has failed to understand. Yeshua's coming back. And we may joke and say, okay, let's look busy, he's coming back. No, he's coming back. And he's not going to be a wimp. He will come back as a lion. He will come back riding on a war horse. He really means it. And when he returns, he's going to do a lot of stuff. And the church is going to be, so is Judah. Christianity and Judah are going to be really sorry for all of the stuff that has come out of their mouths that they've said. I got to say, it's real easy to take a messenger like myself and get all over me about something. But would you say those same words to Yahweh? You say that it's not, the law's done away with. Would you tell him that? I don't think so. I don't think you have the guts. But nothing will be left undone. We have to count on that, by the way. Otherwise, our scriptures have some errors, and they don't. Yeshua is telling us that even the tiniest mark in the Torah is important. I really want to do a message on the jots and the tittles, on the spaces, on the large letters or the small letters, on the dots and things that we see in the Torah, on all of those little microscopic things that we think that's just decoration. He's done stuff to emphasize things. The very first letter in the Torah scroll, the very first word, has more meaning than just in the beginning. It's a lot. And I want to do that. There's stuff in there that you just, it'll just make you feel real good. Yeshua will return. The prophetic scriptures say so. And he will sit on his father David's throne in Jerusalem. And the nations will come up to him, and he will teach us Torah. It says that in the book. I'm counting on it. Everybody wants to talk about Revelation this and Revelation that. Well, you know, that stuff's really going to happen. It's not just going to be a movie or somebody's silly book, late great planet Earth. No, it'll really happen. And he will teach us the truth. Okay. Point 3, in Matthew 19, 5:19, whoever disobeys the least of these commands and teaches others to do so will be called least in the kingdom. Okay. Whoever obeys and teaches others will be called great in the kingdom. Now sink that in. In the kingdom. He's really talking about this great kingdom of heaven, and both of these people are there. Okay? But it doesn't, now I got to say this, it doesn't say that failure to follow the commandments and teach others not to follow the commandments sends a person to hell. I have been accused, wow, I've been accused of a lot of stuff. I'm bringing everybody back under the law again, the synagogue of Satan, which I'm not sure what that really means. But that's what I've been accused of. I have had a pastor tell me that, well, what you're trying to do is get better points by doing all that stuff. Yeah, so? What's the big deal? He wants me to do something and I'm doing it. You know, hey, I was in the Army a long time. They want you to do something, you do it. It's the way I looked at it. I just do it. But that person won't be going to hell. He will be the least in the kingdom of heaven. Now, I have some ideas on what that means. Okay, the NTOC pastors, it means New Testament only Christianity. They only look at the New Testament and they never consider the rest of it. The pastors and preachers are out there and they're teaching that the Torah is dead and we're not bound to follow any of it at all. This past week, I listened to a pastor going on a YouTube video. We'll call him James, actually. Oh, excuse me, we'll call him John. Well, I like John better. We're going to call him John. Now, this guy John is up there saying, we don't have to do any of that stuff. Now, he uses Acts chapter 15 as his justification. Unfortunately, that isn't what it says. All we're required to do is these, whatever those things are. The whole chapter doesn't say that. But he had those very large room full of people convinced that they didn't have to do the law. The law was a burden. The law is abolished. What hurts me the most is that large crowd of people. Not that he said those things. He'll get his comeuppance. But that large crowd of people is enthralled by every word from his mouth. He must be speaking truth. He's a pastor. He's got a big church, and he'd already done 2 hours before that. And to do so, to follow the commandments, makes us legalistic. I am told that by doing this, I am making the blood of Jesus null and void, because his blood saved me from the law, and I don't have to do it. It's the penalty of the Torah is death because of sin. That's what he saved me from. The curse of the Torah is not the Torah, but the sin that the Torah tells us about. That's the curse. And if you don't know, and you go ahead and do it anyway, you're still responsible. You know, Yeshua says of them that they're going to be the least in the kingdom. However, those people that try and live a Torah-obedient lifestyle and teach others will be great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, this is a good and honorable goal for us. Do you understand? We're here attending Sabbath. Why? Because he said to be at Sabbath. We're here because he said to be here. As we are here and participating in the Sabbath, we're being blessed by him, because we are honoring his special day. We're not here honoring the day of the Pope. Oh, and by the way, the Pope can make rules like they have. They changed, they've even admitted it, Catholics have. They have changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day. It's perfectly legitimate and legal for Catholics. Read between the lines for Catholics to follow that. If you want to be a good Catholic, you're supposed to do that stuff. So tell me why the protesting Catholics are doing what the Catholics are doing. Oh, never mind. The person who's trying to do these things will be considered great in the kingdom of the heavens. The commandments are a lifestyle for the redeemed to follow. They do not grant us salvation. Actually, if a person isn't saved at all, and they're just going through the motions of doing this, they're really wasting their time. It's not for them. If you are saved, it's for you. And going through these things is just a really good lifestyle. Why is the insistent on we can eat anything because it's all done away with? Why do you care? Why do you eat stuff that Yahweh said no? I mean, hey, you can go on YouTube and find out all kinds of stuff about pigs. You want to eat that? They eat their own caca. I mean, they eat dead stuff and other icky things. If you're going to eat them, why not eat a buzzard? Go buzzard hunting instead of turkey hunting. Get you a buzzard. Maybe put them in one of those deep fryers, deep-fried buzzard for Thanksgiving. Why not? What? There's some real icky things out there. Why not eat any of those? Why do you want to eat pig? Now, we follow all those commands because we have salvation. That's it. We possess redemption. We are redeemed. So following those things is a part of our redemption. Sanctification is a process. Both people in this statement are going to be a part of the kingdom of heaven. Those that do and those that don't. That means being obedient is not the criteria for going to the kingdom of the heavens. Got it? The salvation part, that's the criteria to get in. The obedience part is what you do because you are saved. Simple? I'm thinking Charlotte over there can get that just like that. The little girl. Just snap, no problem. Okay, We need a Rav boats, for instance. Those who break the commands and teach others to do so are like that glass of water. That one. Those who obey the commands and teach others to do so are like that glass of water. That one. Which of those two glasses is fuller or fullest? You have to imagine I put something in both of these. Huh? They're both full. They're both full completely. I didn't ask which one has more. I said which one is fuller. They both are. They're fullest. Matter of fact, they're kind of up and over the top just a little bit. They're that full. They are full. You can't drop another molecule in there, or it'll spill over the side. That's the two people. So, the choice is yours. Which one you want to follow? You want to be this one? You can. You're full. Or this one. Fill this up with iced tea or lemonade or something. Pretty good. And as I said, the choice is yours. Yeshua came to teach us the Torah properly. Do you understand? He didn't come to create a new religion. The idea Christianity means a religion that Jesus created is foolishness. In fact, he's Jewish. But he's not following the commands of men. He's not teaching the commands of men. And one of his biggest complaints about the Pharisees and all of those guys was that they were teaching the commands of men as though they were come down from on high. They were God's commands. All right, I want to rewrite this Matthew 5:17 a little bit. Don't think that I have come to misinterpret the Torah or the prophets. That's what he says. I've come not to misinterpret, but to assign the fully intended meaning to the words of the Scriptures. Yeshua meant to teach us Scripture correctly. This is why when we're reading through 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew, we find stuff like, you have heard it said of old, that do not commit adultery. And then he amplifies it and says, don't even look on a woman with lust. It's no different. It's a mental thing. He's telling us those things. Where everyone is thinking, well, if I go over and touch her or something, then I'm committing adultery. And he said, no, that ain't the way it works. He's telling us stuff that helps us to understand and accomplish Yahweh's commandments. His objective is not to let us get into a problem. And it's going back to the thing on adultery, it's kind of, okay, if you entertain this thought and you sort of carry it a little bit, and, carry it on for another whatever, sooner or later it starts to become more and more on the person's mind, and then the next thing you know, he's acting it out. It's serious. Nip it in the bud or something like that. Get it while it's young. Don't dabble in those things. He's giving us the correct, fully intended meaning of the Torah as he teaches his Talmudim and consequently us. His Talmudim means students, disciples. He teaches his people. Now, there's more than 12 in that picture. So there were other followers that weren't the 12. And think about it your own self. Some guy comes along and he's teaching really, really good, straight up stuff. And you have other commitments. For example, there's some women there with kids. And that's her commitment. Her commitment is those kids. So she's listening to that thing, but she's not going to be a right there student doing all the work and doing all those other kinds of stuff. No less honorable thing that she's doing, or these other guys that are doing in there, than anything else. You might also notice that whole paragraph, 5:17 through 20, and the rest of the Sermon on the Mount deals with the Torah. None of it talks about his death, resurrection. None of it talks about redemption through his blood. Therefore, that's kind of one of those proof things that's saying, this isn't about salvation. It's about living a set-apart life for Yahweh. We're not trying to be, you can't be saved on your own. You're going to make a mistake. Yahweh wants it done perfectly. Those guys that were in the temple, those priests and those people, they went through a lot of training before they ever got a chance to do any of that stuff. From 20 till the age of 50. What'd they do before they were 20? Were they in training? Were they part of the teachings of this? Did they have to hang out in the temple day in and day out, chop the wood and move coals and stuff like that? I'm wanting to say, yeah. I like to try to visualize the thing that's going on. So these guys from their early years are in there. They are Cohen. They're Levites. So they're in there as Levites. They know they're going to be part of the priesthood. They've got to learn how to do everything. So by the time the guy's 20 years old, he's got it. He better know every little tiny thing. Well, there's no way that a regular common type person, a commoner, a non-Levite, without that training, would know how to do all of that stuff. So we can't be expected to do all of the necessary things for a sacrifice for sin, as an example. He does it for us. Yahweh called Levi to be set apart to him. Levi doesn't get any land. They don't get any possessions of any kind. They serve Yahweh. None of them guys are Levites. I'm just saying that. Now, there may be Levites in there listening to what he's saying. Yeshua's not teaching Levites. He's teaching, well, in this case, just Jews. Just plain old Jews. And from those guys and their writings, us, plain old people. That's all we are. Anyway, he's teaching us. All right, these are a few things that Yeshua said. I was going to do one that says things Yeshua never said, but I dropped that. I didn't think that would be very good. Wait a minute. Okay, I got the two slides. So Yeshua's talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, and he says, you have nullified the commands of Yahweh, of God, by your tradition, your man-made Torah, your man-made laws. And then he quotes Isaiah, this people draw near to me with their mouth and respect me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, but in vain they worship me. Teaching is teachings the commandments of men. I'm going to go back. Okay. He's speaking to the scribes and the Pharisees in Jerusalem, and he's calling them out on their man-made traditions. I'm going to call out the pastors, because that verse in Isaiah is to the pastors today, and the Jews, the rabbis of the Jews today. They draw near to him with their mouth. They'll do the praise and worship like nobody's business. Great stuff. And they respect him with his lips. Oh, praise you, Jesus, praise you, and all this. And I've heard it and watched it. But their heart isn't there. They say, your commands are done away with. That's a burden. We don't have to do that Sabbath thing. It's a burden. Now, why it's a burden I'll talk about in just a second. But they're teaching that, and that teaching, which is the commandments of men, is spread out to their congregations. I would venture to say that in this town, in this state, there isn't a congregation, a church, that won't tell you that the law's done away with. Just saying. I have listened to pastors get up and say, it's gone, it's done. We don't have to do that anymore. We have done stuff in our time in ministry, Margaret and I, and we've come into problems with doing a full Passover Seder to 304 people, to hear someone talking or saying on the way out of the building after everything was done, and believe me, it's a lot of work to put that on. Boy, I'm glad we don't have to do that. What? Well, thanks. The church told him you don't have to do that. All right, what do you do? Well, we do Christmas and Easter. Easter is instead of Passover. Where's Easter in the Bible? Can't find it. Where's Christmas? Oh, we won't go there. Where's Easter in the Bible? It is a teaching of men. You know who gave us Easter? Popesky. One of them popes back a long time ago. He made it up. The Catholic Church did. The protesting Catholics are doing it, and they're saying that's what we have to do. But yet the Bible doesn't say it. You're following man's rules. Stop. Isaiah's speaking to you. Yeshua didn't quote this for nothing. He's serious. You're throwing God's rules out and following the commands of men, and you expect me to do something about it? You pray to me, whine and moan and groan about all the terrible things going on, and you expect me to do something about that? There's places he says, I won't listen to you. Cry and moan all you want. I'm not hearing you. You rejected me? Well, where have we rejected you? You don't do my commands. They're simple. Honor my Sabbaths, the Passover. Not hard. We had one here. Well, was that very hard? Actually, it really was, because, Pastor Larry and Lanham and the rest of the people that put it on, Marcia, there was a lot of work that had to be done. Yes, it's a lot of work. It's a great day. Christmas is a lot of work. My goodness. Christmas dinner and everybody there, put that stupid tree together and hang all the stuff on it and have everybody complain, oh, no, don't put that there, put it over here. I don't want it there. That tree looks terrible. Look at that thing. And then there's money. People will spend a fortune on Christmas gifts. What's next? Okay, I wanted to bring this up because this is really important. Yeshua discusses this thing called the seat of Moses. The seat of Moses was a physical object. It was a chair. And this one here is a stone chair. When a teacher sits in the seat of Moses, they must only, and I really mean only, speak the words of the Torah. They cannot even give us any kind of interpretation. They can't say that means blah, 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 whatever it was that they think it means. They speak the direct words out of it. And here he is, Yeshua is saying, he speaks to the crowd and to his taught ones, that's his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in the seat of Moses. Therefore, whatever, my translation says, they say, whatever they say to you, guard and do. But do not do according to what they do, for they don't do it. Now here's a problem. The translation, whatever they say to you, is incorrect. It should be whatever Moses says to you, whatever the words of the Torah say to you. Probably it's a modern English thing, but in our thinking we say, oh, well, we're listening to what that guy says. That guy must speak words of Torah. And many churches simply don't know that. It's not taught. But he is speaking the words of the Torah, so whatever the words of the Torah are, that's what we do, but don't do what he does. So Yeshua tells them, what that Pharisee says, you do what he says when he's sitting on a seat, or when he's speaking Torah, but forget it. Well, what he's doing. And then Yeshua goes on to describe, that they'll go and find disciples from all over the place and make them do all kinds of stuff. And that's what the church does. They tell us to do stuff that they don't do. Okay, Yeshua is saying that we must follow the written law. The written Torah is Yahweh's words. Yes? We buy that. We believe that. What's written in the book. Now, translations have messed us up. And that some of those translations are absolutely disgusting in what they do. I am adamantly against the not inspired version, the NIV. Just absolutely against it. Because of stuff that they butcher in the Old Testament, and they should know better. And I have to show you that specifically, so I won't. But there's other versions out there. The Message. Anybody ever heard of that version? Yeah? You heard of it? There are churches that teach out of the Message. And in Mark chapter 7, where Yeshua is telling them about food, he's not saying anything about food. He's talking about this man-made law thing, where he says the problem is that the disciples come in and they sit down and they're ready to eat and they don't wash their hands, it says. Well, they don't wash their hands according to the man-made rules of the rabbis. You got to let the water run from your wrist down across your hand and say the blessing. And if you don't say it right, you start all over again, or something like that. And they were really upset because they weren't following their rules. So Yeshua goes on in this discussion, and from Matthew, or from Mark chapter 7, comes the theology that we can eat anything we want. Because food goes in your mouth and it just goes out. You know, it just goes through. Right. Food goes through. Doesn't make anything unclean. But the message says, and that does away with all of the quibbling about kosher rules or some wording in that way. In other words, they're lying. The author of that was a New Ager. So if you're reading that book, it's usually the pages aren't even big enough for wrapping fish or something like that. I wouldn't do anything with it, maybe fire starting or something like that. Don't. It is not Yahweh's word. But that's what happens to it. The written law is corrupted by somebody with an agenda. Now, the scriptures, which is what we read from today, their agenda, and many, many, many other Bibles just like this, their agenda is to give us the best possible translation in our language that they can. They're not trying to show a New Testament only doctrine like the NIV does. They're doing it to show us the best possible translation. They make some errors, so does everybody else, and that's just fine, but they're trying. And they come out and tell us that they're trying. The man-made law of religious leaders has gotten us into a lot of trouble. We have whole denominations created out of man-made stuff. Yeshua says that if you love me, these are his words. Okay, I'm not making it up. But he says, if you love me, you shall guard my commands. Who gave the Torah to his people Israel? Someone came down physically and met with Moses. Yahweh doesn't come down and physically meet with humans. Matter of fact, all he did was show him just this teeniest, Moses, this teeniest little part. But he didn't show him all of his glory. If he did, there would be no Mount Sinai. It would be a hole in the ground, a crater. So, who comes down? Yeshua, Messiah. Who was one of the three angels that met with Abraham, who is called Yahweh? Who was it that met Moses in the burning bush, who's called Yahweh, and who speaks with him? Who met with him face to face? Or is that whom? Am I saying it wrong? I'm not good on that. Whom or who? James tells us that Yeshua is the lawgiver. He gave us the Torah. The Word is the bread of life? Yes? Is he the bread of life? What's this counting of the omer business? Why we use this wheat stuff? Well, if we did, and we ground up that wheat stuff, we could make bread out of it. The bread of life is the omer. Okay, that might be carrying things too far. He is the one that gave the Torah. So when he says my commands, and this is what church people have said to me, but he said, I give you a new command. Love one another. Yes. But that's an old command. He's emphasizing that. He's the author of the Torah, so we guard his Torah. And let's see, what does he say here again in John? As the Father loved me, I have loved you. You stay in my love if you guard my commands. Now, I'm strictly using in this message all of Yeshua's words out of his mouth. 1 John And, well, lots of other places, pretty much tells us a lot, tells us about the same thing. But guard my commands, you stay in my love. Oh, wait a minute. Even as I have guarded my Father's commands? So if he did away with the law, he can't say this, he's lying. Yes? Does he lie? No. Does God lie? No. So this is a true statement. He who possesses my commands and guards them, that's another way of saying does them, it is he who loves me. He who loves me shall be loved by my Father. Ooh, cool. And I shall love him and manifest myself to him. So, this isn't a salvation issue. If anyone loves me, he shall guard my word. And my Father shall love him. And he shall come to him and make our stay with him. And he who does not love me does not guard my words. Reverse that. He who does not guard my words does not love me. It's the same sentence. That's the way Hebrew talks, is the syntax is kind of backwards. Yoda style. So, if you don't guard my words, you don't love me. All righty. It is my opinion, okay? It is my opinion that all of the words of Revelation are the words of Yeshua specifically to that guy, John, who wrote it down. Now, I can say that because that seems to be what all of Revelation is telling me. Yeshua gave him this prophecy. He didn't, it's quoting an awful lot of the Old Testament. But even so, Yeshua gave him the prophecies, and he wrote it down, just like you see there in the left-handed guy. Yeshua speaks in the book. Yeshua is the author. He inspires 3 powerful messages advocating the Old Testament. And I really mean the written Torah, not the oral Torah. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed. That'd be those guarding the commands and possessing the witness of Yeshua Messiah. So if you're not saved but guarding his commands, don't worry. If you are saved, you're guarding his commands. And the dragon don't like you. He speaks to us from the book of Revelation in 14. Here's the endurance of the set-apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yeshua. Saved. Belief of Yeshua is saved. That's what salvation is. Yes, we all got that. Guarding the commands of Elohim. And the third one is, blessed are those doing his commands. This one I love. Because the people doing his commands get authority of the tree of life, and we can go into the gates of the cities. So if you want to be a Gentile, guess what? Ain't no Gentile gate. So, the followers of Yeshua at the end of the age will be commandment keepers. Even as they maintain their faith and trust in Yeshua, that means they'll be saved. Revelation 12 reveals that Israel, which is typified there by that woman, that's the one that they're talking about, will be keeping the laws of Yahweh. This is after they've been done away with, by the way, if you were following that. Revelation 14 states that Israel are those who obey Yahweh's commands and have the testimony. And 22, it is those who are faithfully observe Yahweh's commandments, enter into the holy city. So, this is a sign on highway. Where do you want to spend eternity? On an I-40, huh? You see that sign? Where do you want to spend eternity? There or on the other side of the wall? Still there. You want to be in the wall? The choice is yours. If there is no Torah, there's no sin, there's no need for redemption, and we don't need a Savior. Yahweh will put His Torah in our inward parts and in our hearts. Nineveh, they repented in sackcloth and ashes. Maybe that's what we need to do, is get some sackcloth and ashes. I'm not sure what sackcloth is. I always thought it was like scratchy and nasty. And the church needs to repent. It is time. Shalom. Yevarekah Yahweh v'yishmereka. Yair Yahweh panav elecha v'yikuneka. Yisa Yahweh panav elecha v'yasem laka shalom. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And Yahweh lift up His countenance upon you and give you His shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody.